with me. Hello, Rafael. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Margaret. How are you doing today?
Very well. Everyone, I have Rafael Villaruz with me. He's a career leadership coach, mental health care consultant, professor at Cal State Long Beach. He helps leaders succeed in the hardest part of their job, the people. Welcome this morning. Thank you very much for joining me. And
Awesome.
yes, would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for inviting me on. I'm excited to have this conversation. Again, I'm Rafael. Margaret did a good job of talking about three buckets. I like to look at myself as a career leadership career coach, meaning I help you be a greater leader within the career that you have. That's my first bucket. I'm a healthcare consultant, so I do work in mental health and maternal child health. I focus on innovation in healthcare. So how you receive care as a patient, that's my team. And then my third bucket is education. I'm a professor. I teach healthcare management courses and I teach healthcare innovation courses. So that is my gamut, my little Venn diagram that I like to explain myself. And that's what I come to here and talk to you about. So really excited to start our conversation.
Awesome. So, with that being said, I have recently retired from the Army Corps of Engineers, okay? And I'm in transition. And with that being said, I have always championed women's empowerment because I have been under upper underrepresented class, and so as a woman, and working in a non-traditional field, and working with the military, I have experienced racism and gender bias. Okay, so having to navigate in those different situations, I have moved 8 times, and uh, and I have came out ahead because I always chose my own path. I chose to do what was based on my values and beliefs. So I also am a minority, being an African American, growing up in the 1960s, and I'm proud of that, and because I'm a product of my environment. So I also champion diversity um, and inclusion. And as a result, I was torn with who will I serve? Okay, women empowerment here, minority here. And in my previous conversation, she said, Candy said to me, her niche chose her.
Mhm.
Now, my calling is to bring the two together because we are all in a peril in our lives at this point in time. And we need to decide, like myself, which way we're going to go, which way we're going to go. And by banding together, we're more powerful. So, what are your thoughts on this, uh, Raphael?
Yeah, what a good question. What a great reflection. I think my first reaction is the if we're looking at a niche, yes, that's one facet of it, but it's not mutually exclusive, right? And so what do I mean by that? I think whether it's focusing on women empowerment or focusing on minorities, there's a lot of people who kind of fall into that intersection, correct? So, for
Correct.
example, I know we talked about it before, like your focus on women leadership, that bias in that minority group, that's something that even though I'm not a female, I experienced because of my age, right? And so I was a young leader. I didn't have a beard. I looked like 14 years old. And that judgment was passed. That's something I had to climb up over, right? And so when I look at that, that could be one facet of what I serve, right? But being in healthcare, I'm actually in a highly female dominated industry, right? So think about that. Like I have age as kind of one bucket. That's my challenge that I'm going through. But my minority status, I'm Filipino American. And maybe I don't see a ton of Filipinos within my industry or within the company that I was working with at the time, right? But what did I see? I did see a lot of females. So blending all of that together, when I'm looking to serve and I'm looking to help, it's agnostic of what's going on, right? It's agnostic of the minority group that they find themselves in. All that I try to help with is I understand what it feels like, right? I don't know what it feels like to be a female, but I know what it feels like to be judged, to be criticized based on something I can't control, which is my age, right? And so
Absolutely.
utilizing that helps me serve whomever needs that help. And what I find actually is that's a unique perspective that I can help bring. And that's what gets me energized. That's what gets me excited. That's what gets me um, just really passionate about helping people. And what I find myself is because I mean, I'm not female, I'm Filipino American, but people relate to whatever else I went through, right? It may not be identical, but it's similar, right? And so they can look at the analogous setting and say, oh, this guy kind of gets me. And then we start to have that conversation. We see where that intersection is. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of my perspective of how I approach things.
I love that, Raphael. And the fact that you are a healthcare consultant, let's talk about that and how the uh, the landscape is changing the healthcare industry.
Hmm.
Myself being retired now, I'm going to have to be more reliant on healthcare as I get older.
Hmm.
So please talk to me about it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to mix a few things with healthcare. I think healthcare in general, from a societal standpoint, we need to change as an industry, right? Like we're archaic, we're the dinosaur, right? So we're very slow moving. And what we're finding is society is moving super fast. And so we have kind of this inflection point of what do we do in healthcare. However, the society is pushing us to change, but what is healthcare? Like really, we're just trying to take care of people, right? And so when you think about that, there's so many biases, so many hurdles that you have to jump over to take care of the people who need health care the most, right? And so one of our jobs within my team really focuses on how do we bring diversity into it, inclusivity into it. And when you think about that, it may not be so traditional, whether you focus on race or ethnicity, right? That's a facet of what we do. But I'm going to go back to what I talked about in the previous question. It could be age related, right? It could be the period of where you're at in your life, whether you're about to have a baby, whether you're about to go on hospice, whatever it is, right? So linking healthcare to what we do as coaches, right? We don't know what we're walking into. So we personalize every single session, right?
Right,
I'm going to
right.
come in, I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to understand what you're going through, and then I'm going to give you exactly what you need. That's what healthcare is shifting towards, or at least that's what my team is doing our best to shift towards because of the fact that, okay, I'm gonna use a broad example. I'm a millennial. That doesn't mean I think like all millennials. I don't access healthcare like all millennials, right? So in society, we have this broad swath. Oh, they're a generation. They do X, right? They do Y. That's not how things go in the reality. And so our job as a team, and this is why I enjoy working in healthcare, we get to push the envelope and say, yeah, we got millions of millennials to take care of, but a millennial going through pregnancy is different than a millennial who just got injured going through college and like has an ACL tear. Different needs, and it's up to the industry to give them exactly what they need. So just a little perspective on what I do in healthcare, but also to how my team is trying to shift healthcare in that right way.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I spent 16 years overseas. And when I
Mhm.
was in Israel, take for example, their system was like socialized medicine where they didn't care who you were. You go to the doctor when you needed to go. And I think that's a part of their, like, when you pay your taxes, that's a part of that. Like the education, defense, healthcare. Those are the things that come out of that bucket. Okay, everybody has healthcare, so why can't we do something like that in the United States?
Yeah, really good question. Probably a little bigger than what I have time for to ask, but I do think I would argue that our healthcare system needs a revamp. And this is one iteration of healthcare. I think sometimes where we we get caught up is because things, kind of going back to my example, things are moving so fast that we expect an industry to move as fast. That's not always the case, right? And so I
Right.
feel a divergence that needs to kind of come back. And and when you think about socialized medicine, there are there are downsides to that as well too.
Yes,
And
of
so
course.
that there's pros and cons to each. And I think where healthcare needs to focus on is inclusivity, to be honest with you. I do think that there's I mean, I'm a millennial. I don't necessarily maybe I don't want to go into the doctor. Maybe I got two kids. I got to make sure to get them everywhere. I don't have the time. How do we give the care that patients need at the right time in the manner that they need? That's the envelope that we're trying to push, and to back it up with really solid clinical providers. That's where we really try to focus on.
Well, where I agree with you, but what I think we should start at the grassroots level and start with education, teaching people how to eat, how to exercise,
Mhm.
teaching them, okay, mental nourishment, and all of the things that sustain our bodies first off. And then through that process, we're coming from strength versus
Mhm.
from weakness. And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an educator. I always lean towards education, right? And I think again, healthcare and education are the two slowest moving industries, right? They're the two archaic industries, and they need to bend to the curve of what's going on in society. Do I think education is the right way to go? Yes. Do I think sometimes as a society we don't think about our healthcare because it doesn't matter because it's not in front of us? Yes, I actually think that is because we live in a world of instant gratification, right? So
Absolutely.
if I eat a donut today and I don't feel like crap, well, then I'm gonna eat a donut tomorrow, right? So when you think
Absolutely.
about that, it's not necessarily just the education too. It's also how do we function in society? What are we teaching our kids? And how do we leverage that as continuity throughout our entire life? I even look at it through a coaching mentality, right? We start with education normally, but you know damn well, you know this too. There are hundreds, thousands of information out there where they can go and get the exact same information that you and I may be delivering to them. But what's different? We put it in a container, we package it up nicely with a bow, and we give it to them in the way that exactly they need to receive it. That's what healthcare hasn't done yet. That's what education is trying to do a little bit more, right? And I could see both of these industries bending, but if I'm looking at it in an analogous setting with coaching, that's that's exactly what's needed. My kid may need extra time with math. My other kid may need extra time with English, right? But to have that broad swath that we talked about and say, well, you get this and you should learn, that's not personalized care. That's not personalized coaching. That's just giving you some information and hoping for the best.
Okay, I respect what you're saying. Also, as far as education, I
Hmm.
am going to educate my child before it goes to school, just like I bought that puppy. I'm
Yep.
training him now. I got him set to go to training, but I don't wait for the training. The training starts when you're in the womb and it
Yep.
continues throughout life. And with that mindset, we stay ahead of the game and rather than behind.
I love this. I'm gonna piggyback on that. So, kind of one of my leadership philosophies has always been starting with yourself. I am a firm believer you have to lead yourself in order to lead others. That's like the foundation of what I believe in as a leader. The same goes for what you're just mentioning right now, too, right?
Absolutely.
If you're outsourcing the education, if you're outsourcing the healthcare and hoping that it gets better, right? Then you're not taking ownership over it. So I do
No.
think what you said has a ton of merit, and I do believe that, you know, you starting training, whatever it is, the education in the household, in the container that you have, that's what's important, right? Because the continuity. Similarly to our coaching, right? We teach them something, and then they start to see the world a little differently, right? They're like, oh gosh,
Absolutely.
oh, I didn't realize that they were saying this. Oh, I didn't. So all these like all the connections start to happen. However, if you never do that, you never give that personalized attention, that personalized training, how will they know when the connections happen? Right. And so it's a relationship with whatever else you're trying to do, whether that's eating better, leading better, whatever that may be, leading a team, etc. So hopefully that gives a perspective on it.
Absolutely. And then as I was taught as a child, it starts at home. Okay, it starts at home. Look in the mirror, man in the mirror. Okay. All right. So I really enjoyed that part that we talked about. And so when we talk about the intersection between healthcare, mental health, and education, and the internet interconnections in between, we must look at the support groups.
Hmm.
As I have seen during the course of history, where there was so much support out there, and then when there was a shift in the landscape,
Hmm.
that went away. And most of those individuals that were suffering from mental illnesses were turned away. I'll give you an example. I ride around in my neighborhood now that I'm retired. A lot of the people I see walking around in the neighborhoods, they're just standing there. Okay? These are beautiful neighborhoods. Okay? We have these facilities, we house these people at night, but we let them go in the daytime. They just stand there doing nothing. These are, to me, these are well-bodied individuals that can be taken somewhere and shown a manufacturing process or something to be able to utilize that uncaptured skill. Okay, I'll
Hmm.
give you an example because when I was in Israel, they have kibbutz. Everybody who lives in that community contributes towards the survival of that community. Okay,
Hmm.
and they take up whatever they sell, whether it's fruits, vegetables, whatever, and they put it back in their community. So what's happening to us here in the United States?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a huge step back out of healthcare and just talk about our society in general. And I think when I'm going to go back to, I'm going to link a couple things real quick. So, taking a step back from healthcare, looking at it from the lens of a Filipino American, the difference of what I see a lot of, and I see this with my kids and kind of the parents that we deal with, we live in a very individualistic society, correct? Like
Correct.
it's all for one, right? And you gotta, or it's one for all, basically, not all for one. And when you think about that, I've been all throughout Asia, I've been through Europe. There, the collectivist mentality is real there. And when you look at the dichotomy between the two, what does a collectivist mentality or society do? They take care of everyone else. An individualistic mentality they take care of themselves. And so when you look at this, is it something within healthcare? I think healthcare is a byproduct of the society that we live in. So when you think about that, can it change? Yeah. Is it going to change within our lifetime? Probably not. Because what we've gone through 200 something years of focusing on the individual. Everyone else that's Western culture has gone through it hundreds of years looking at it like a community. So when I think about that, that's a lens that I look at every single thing in our society with. You just happen to be bringing a healthcare lens to it, right? But it's that fact is, are you taking care of your grandparents and your parents when they can't work anymore, or are you sending them off? And that's so different than how I grew up as well too, right? So that's a little perspective, taking myself out of the healthcare space and looking at society in general.
And I love that, and the fact that I have had an opportunity to travel overseas and see how other people live, and I come back to our place, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot we can do here to take care of our own,
Mhm.
okay, and take care of our environment, so that our kids will have something. Okay, that's my concern, and us as coaches to mentor and coach people to help them to reach their desired outcomes and let them know there is a way out.
I love
You
it. Oh,
guys, okay.
I want to piggyback on something you just said. I love that so much because when you think of us as coaches, right? Why do we get into coaching? We like to help people.
Right.
As simple as that. Like that's the foundation of all of it, right? When we think about helping people, that's a deposit into a collectivist culture, right? Because I know I've gone through my experience. I have insights and takeaways and learnings that you may not have. But if I don't share it with you, that's a selfish outlook, right? That's an individualistic mentality. And so when I think about coaches, are all the coaches in the world going to shift everything? Probably not in our lifetime, right? But it's a deposit into the right way. And I do believe that the way that we look at a team, I'm going to use team in a broad sense because I think all of us have a team that we rely on as we move through our careers. The team should be helping you and adding on to you, calling you out on your BS, making sure that you can see the connections that you are blinded to, or even making you see the good work that you're already doing, right? And so when I look at that, that is a way that I enjoy being a coach because not only am I helping people, but I'm part of their team now. Once I'm part of their team, oh, you better believe I'm going to do whatever I can in order to help you succeed.
Now that you keep talking team through our conversation, let's talk about psychological safety because your
Let's
team is not going to be uh, giving information willingly without psychological safety. Let's talk about it.
100%. Let's talk about it. I think the how I look at psychological safety is going to kind of create a visual picture, but psychological safety is the foundation. I look at this as a prerequisite in order to have an effective team. And why do I look at it that way? Well, psychological safety leads to trust, right? If you feel
Right.
safe with me, we will build the trust over time, right? So psychological
Right.
safety leads to trust. Once we have trust, we can have candor. I can tell you what's on my mind. I can say, Margaret, you messed that up. Not Margaret, you're a screw up. Margaret, you messed that up. Let's get that better, right? So again, that candor, because we have that trust, because the psychological safety is the foundation, we can have the candor, we can have the courage to work with each other, say things that are difficult but really kind, right? Like I want someone to tell me like you're about to fall flat on your face, right? That's super important for me. But psychological safety is that foundation. And when you think about that, psychological safety, and I think leaders get this mixed up all the time, it's not that damn difficult. But what it is, it takes time and consistency. That's it, right? And so
Absolutely.
when you think of psychological safety, I coach a ton of my clients on this that it's not necessarily what you say, it's everything that you do, right? So if I tell you, Margaret, I'm going to send you an email at 5 p.m. and maybe you're like, all right, cool. 5:05, you don't get it. 5:30, you don't get it. 6 o'clock, you don't get it. And I don't talk to you about it the next day. I withdrew from our psychological safety bank, right? And even though
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily have to do with something vulnerable or whatever that may be, you're looking at me and you're assessing me. Oh, Rafael's not reliable. Rafael's not a person of integrity, right? Those are all chips in and cracks that's going on. So when I think about psychological safety, it's not anything difficult. It's being consistent and doing it over time. So saying what you're going to do, huge, right? If I say I'm going to
Right.
be there at 5 o'clock, I'm going to be there at 5 o'clock. That's depositing into our bucket, right?
Right.
And when you think of reliability, I'm going to add one more other piece to psychological safety is your credibility. So when I think of reliability and credibility, reliability, are you going to do what you say you're going to do? Credibility, what is my perception of you prior to that, right? So if I have a reputation of being someone who's always on time, I'm going to keep going back to punctuality, and every single encounter you have with me, I'm always late. That's a division versus what I think of you versus my experience of you. So that divergence will start to lose the psychological safety. So I'm kind of linking a lot of things here, but when I think of psychological safety, it's the foundation, the true foundation of any effective team.
In any relationship.
True. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Absolutely. And when we talk about teamwork, working with the military, there's no way in the world I could have made it today without those individuals that I worked with. And I am grateful to each and every one of them. We are bonded for life.
Mm.
We were able to put aside all of our differences, regardless of our political leanings, regardless of our religious backgrounds, whatever. We put all that aside and we came together as a team. What do you need? What do you need? What is your skill? What do you do? What can you bring? What do you bring to the table? And how can we contribute? And how can we accomplish our mission? That's always we is what we have to do. Okay. And if we keep that in mind, there's nothing that we can't accomplish. Okay.
100% agree with that. And then just to add one other thing is a great leader isn't walking in front of their team. That's not safety. They're walking alongside their team. And so when I think about that, that's how I've always functioned as a leader. That's how I try to coach my clients because there is a societal, going back to our little society talk, a societal version of a leader, someone at the helm, someone barking orders, someone telling everybody what to do. That's not how it works, right? I've been on multiple sports teams. I've been in multiple teams within a professional environment and even in my personal environment. The best leaders, they don't wear a freaking hat that says leader. They wear the same damn uniform and they're just walking alongside you. And I think that's where psychological safety comes in. Is not, hey, I'm going to tell you what to do. It's like, oh, we're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to do it together. So going back to your example of your experience in the military, that's what creates those bonds. That's what creates a great leader, is not walking too far in front, but walking alongside and going at the pace and meeting the team where they're at.
And that is exactly what coaching is about as well.
Absolutely. You're totally right.
Raphael, I have really enjoyed our conversation today. Tell me, um, what else would you like to share today?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess going back to your audience, kind of who you're focused on. So I'm going to focus on minorities and women leaders. When I think a lot about coaching, the benefits of having someone to talk to with no bias into your experience, into your environment is one of the most liberating, freeing, energizing experiences you can have. And the reason why is we all walk through life with our lens, but there's fog that we may be seeing, right? We may not see directly through. And what a coach does is give clarity. And why? So I'm going to link it back to your audience. If I had clarity as I was going through my first leadership roles, that would have completely changed my confidence as a leader. Instead of going through it, trying to pick myself back up, now, I mean, I have coaches as well too. They help pick me back up too. Because in my mind, I fell flat on my face. What they see is, hey, you just tripped. You're still walking, but you just tripped. And that's where the benefit of coaching is. So I'm going back to the minorities and the female leaders. When you see someone that can relate to you, they don't even have to look like you. They just have to relate to you. That's the benefit of coaching. And that's where you get all the insights and take. So that's probably the only thing I would add and just see if there's any other questions you have for me.
I really enjoyed that, and it's so true. It rings true. Um, Coaching is a partnership. In education, all the things that we love. We talked about mental health and healthcare, support groups, and we touched on diversity and inclusion. And I want to thank you so much for your presence today. And I'm going to put links uh, to your LinkedIn in the video, And do you have any last words of wisdom that you would like to share?
Oh gosh, they're putting some pressure on me now that I gotta close it, right? Um, I think the words of wisdom that I would share with any of your audience is you're probably not too far off from where you want to be. And that gap can be closed by usually working with a coach, to be honest with you. And they can see that gap and they can help you. They can be the bridge to that gap. And so, to anyone listening out there that's kind of struggling and kind of like, how the heck am I going to do this next? You're not that far off. Sometimes all you need is a different perspective to push you forward.
And that's the power of coaching. I'm gonna tell you, I have 4 or 5 coaches. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. I have coaches for Substack. I have coaches for my personal bit, for my personal and my professional. Okay. If I
Yeah.
can't figure it out and I need some encouragement and some uplifting, I'm gonna call on the coach. Most of my friends are coaches slash therapy. So I get free therapy slash coaching.
Mm,
That's wonderful. Okay. That's what helps to keep
uh,
me grounded.
it's true.
Okay.
That's what helps you keep you on track to reach where you want to reach to. So this was amazing, Margaret. Awesome conversation. Really energized. Thank you for having me here.
And thank you. All right.